I saw it from Bergen.
How did you like it?
I liked it. I like the sauce on it.
You know, because
I like the
voters,
sauce.
they wanna make money, and
They
then
wanna
to
build
do
it.
it, the bigger the, right?
Well,
It's crazy.
to build a 1,000 square foot house for a 2,000 square foot house
One
takes
water.
almost the same amount of time
Yeah.
with all your sites.
Right.
And it takes the same amount of headaches, the same amount of
Yeah.
permits. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, city council.
Gary, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I missed the park board meeting today. They moved it from Tuesday to Monday. I didn't know. Happens.
That's a pink Coca-Cola, Justin. It's not like a quart.
Well, you see, I'm messed up.
I only ever get the small one.
I put 2024 last week, last meeting.
I did
I
the
got the rest of mine. Yeah, we don't have much on the agenda. Annexation and not much.
So it goes.
Yeah, Robbie is in.
If you'd all rise, I'll call this meeting to order. Due to Jack and Diane being absent, I'll start with the invocation. Father, we pause to thank you for another opportunity to serve the residents of this city. I ask now that as we look at tonight's agenda, we learn more about the proposal that will have an impact on the downtown. I just ask that we'll have sharp minds and humble hearts. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Amen. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. And I want to welcome our guests tonight, Terry in the back, Dallas, good to see you. And, yeah, Justin. For the record, Lynn, Diane, Mike, and Jack are absent. With 4 members on the council, any vote tonight must be a majority, which would be 4 to take any kind of action. Okay. The first item that we have is the approval of the minutes from the April 7th meeting.
The only thing I've noted is I was marked present and absent in the notes, so.
Well, you're just everywhere, aren't you?
You can just circle one, pick one, and I was either here or there. right?
You're absent.
All right, so that, we'll amend that. Good catch there, Josh.
With that, I'll approve as, with the amendment.
Okay, motion to approve as amended. Is there a second, Jerry?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Sorry about that.
Don't let it happen again.
Again, welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. Reports, oral and written communications. There's a March fund report. Lynn, any comments?
No, I don't have any comments unless there's a question.
Any questions from any of the board members? Okay, I'll move on to unfinished business. This is ordinance 2025-0401 on second reading, cross leasing annexation. I don't see Jeremy here, but this would be our second read. He did provide a memo. This is the south side of County Road 250 North. There was a public hearing. Fiscal plan was adopted. Jeremy's indicated in the memo. I'm now presenting the annexation ordinance.
Where did you find that? I can't find it.
And it did pass. He indicates in the memo that on the 21st, it would be on second reading, and that's why it's in this particular section. So Jeremy Skinner, Community and Economic Development Director, is asking for approval on second reading. Are there any questions on this ordinance? Justin's here, he might be able to answer any questions if you have any, but,
If no one has any questions, I would move to approve ordinance number 2025-04-01 on second reading.
there's a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 4-0. Thank you for that. That'll take us to new business. I want to thank Justin. I see him coming up to the lectern there. His hard work, as well as members of the council going through a lot of material. We have gentlemen here tonight that'll be sharing. Dallas and Terry are here. They've been involved in several committee meetings. Appreciate you guys, your input and efforts with this. Justin, thanks again. If you would at this time highlight where we are, where we've come from, and where you'd like to go.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to thank you for making that annexation. That was a weird little one lot that was still in the county, and we got it cleaned up, so I appreciate that, and clean up our zoning maps now, having that in. And it's a good project for Enterprise, so it'll be a great addition to the city. Thanks, Jeff, for that introduction. It has been a process, and I just want to highlight some of those key points, like Jeff pointed out. Tonight is just for discussional purposes only, so we just want to have a discussion with the City Council on this public forum about some of the proposed changes for the downtown parking situation. So we're proposing some changes, and I won't be asking the City Council to take any action on that. I did have them upload a copy of the Downtown Parking Committee report, which articulates the findings that the Downtown Parking Committee established over the last year with our review of the downtown parking ordinances that we have in place, as well as our current enforcement system. The Downtown Parking Committee received feedback through public meetings like the Traffic Safety Commission, numerous planning documents, including the 2023 Hyatt Palma study, which was endorsed by the City Council, and most recently, the 2030 Downtown Warsaw Strategic Plan conducted by Main Street Warsaw. And we have Terry here. There he is. To maybe speak on some of that if you guys have any questions about that study. There are also a few pages attached to the report that I submitted that include Terry's work in that 2030 Downtown Strategic Plan. Some of the main things that we kept seeing, the Downtown Parking Committee kept seeing come up over and over again, was the lack of consistent enforcement, which was leading to a lack of turnover in downtown. So this was one of the biggest complaints we heard over and over again. And lack of consistent enforcement means a lot of things, but it means that even during adverse weather conditions, we weren't able to enforce the parking. A lot of times with chalk, it could be removed by the person that's violating the parking ordinance. It could be they could move a space and then no longer are violating that restriction for 2 hours. So there were a lot of things that limited us with our current system. There's also a lot of processes that were a little bit behind the times with our current system. So that's kind of where we were going with lack of consistent enforcement. Again, that was brought up into those meetings and those documents. There were it was also pointed out that a significant number of downtown employees were parking in the preferred spots, the 2-hour spots that were intended for customers. So somebody might own a business and then their employees are parking in front of other people's businesses, and it was some of those things. It was causing a lot of consternation between the business owners downtown. So that was something we definitely wanted to look at and address with any solution that we proposed. We wanted to offer a solution for, we saw that there was a desire for people to not extend their stay for more than 2 hours, but also have an option to, if they were stuck in a meeting, not have to run out to their car and move it again. So those were other issues we wanted to address. We also saw that we needed to manage the increase of commercial and residential development in downtown. So those were things that we wanted to bring to the forefront with our evaluation of the downtown parking. Our process So we first formed that downtown parking committee. We had representatives from Main Street Warsaw, the mayor's office, the police department, city council, code enforcement, the Traffic Safety Commission, and the planning department present at those meetings. After we got into it, we realized once we were headed in a direction where we thought a paid parking option might be a direction we go, we brought on board a consultant who is here today, John Oglesby. He's been very helpful in helping us navigate this very complex process. He helped us put together an RFP that got respondents to come to a mandatory pre-bid meeting. That was 6 companies that showed up at that pre-bid meeting. Out of those 6 companies, we got 4 qualifying proposals. So we had a good amount of companies to choose from, operators to help us run our system if we implemented a paid parking system downtown. Once we were able to evaluate those companies, again, John was instrumental in that. He prepared this very large spreadsheet that showed us apples to apples, how the different companies stacked up to each other. We narrowed that down to one company, and that company is here today as well to answer any questions you may have. Their proposal for their operating contract would go before the Board of Works, but I wanted to give the City Council an opportunity to ask questions or find out more about the company that we think would be the best fit for our city. So the next steps would be navigating that operations agreement and then preparing our ordinance updates, which will be the task of the City Council. Our proposed solutions for some of the problems we saw would be implementing a consistent and customer-friendly enforcement program, updating our existing parking to a digital scanner system. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the chalk-based systems just aren't sufficient anymore. A lot of people can game those systems, and there's practically can't be enforced when there's adverse weather. So again, we wanted a system that would really work. We also wanted to make sure we maintain the 2-hour parking in the core of downtown, the 2-hour free parking in the core of downtown, but also give people an option to pay after those 2 hours have elapsed. That encourages the turnover that businesses were looking for in downtown. We wanted something that was a mobile app that was easy to use. You don't have to necessarily download an app, but you can just use your mobile device to increase the ability for a customer-friendly product in the end. And we also wanted to update the ordinances, so that means looking at increasing fines for downtown parking. Currently, our parking tickets are $10. We found that doesn't dissuade a lot of people from violating the parking ordinance. A lot of people are like, I'm just going to pay the $10 and park in front of somebody's shop all day, and I don't care about their customers or how many people they could see in their business. We found that $10 just wasn't sufficient. So we're proposing potentially doubling the fines for downtown, which would bring us to $20, $25, and those are things the council will have to evaluate and put into place in the form of an ordinance. So in a nutshell, those are kind of our recommendations at this point. We can go into more detail about all of those throughout this meeting, but we just wanted to give an overview of the process, where we've been, and what we're kind of proposing right now. So, any questions for me here?
I do have a question. Maybe these gentlemen might be able, well, anybody can answer it. Okay, we have it, so the third hour would be $3 and then not to exceed $11 a day. Is that enough to discourage people from parking? Or, well, of course, right now they're kind of gaming that they can go 2 or 3 days maybe without having to pay a ticket. So this would ensure that every day they would have to pay.
And that's a really important point, Cindy. We can definitely talk about it more at length, but that would be where the council would come in and hear from their constituents and see,
Okay.
what you guys feel is appropriate. That was kind of the first numbers that we threw at it, and John may be able to articulate that very well. He's very experienced in rolling out these systems, so he might want to interject it. Sure, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate the opportunity to be back in Warsaw again. It's a great community. I'm very excited to be here. Is this the time when you want, like, my little who I am and what we do, or you just want me to answer?
Sure, go over that. Yeah.
Sure. So My name is John Oglesby, and I'm the CEO of Parking Whisperer. We're an operational parking consulting firm. One of the things that we do, building on my 40 years of experience in the parking business, is working with communities identical to Warsaw that perhaps had paid parking back in the 60s or 70s, and for whatever reason, that no longer came into being. We were hired by Main Street Warsaw, KidCo, and did a project initially when you all were evaluating a proposed hotel and convention center, which we thought made a great idea, and we were able to support the numbers that had been provided by that consultant. But that also led to a number of suggestions that we put together, which I think ultimately ended up with us getting hired again. So, and I stand before you on my titanium knee, being very pleased to be in the orthopedic capital of the world. Also, I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, just down the road. So, it's just like coming home in lots of ways for me. So we have rolled out, in my background, 25 years as a parking operator, 10 years running a mobile payment company. I've also had the honor of running all the parking and transportation for the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, Canada. So kind of a wide berth there, and have worked in almost every parking vertical that there is. What we did, your specific question, is $11 enough? That's a great question. One of the things that we did in our, I think Justin would agree, and Terry, an exhaustive process, we went through and asked, the way we like to do an RFP and an RFI, right, request for proposal, request for information, is rather than just hire me, I then go out and hire for free for you all parking operators. And we were very pleased to have 6 qualified operators bid on the city of Warsaw. We had a mandatory meeting for them to come in, all of whom did. We have, I think we went back to the 2 finalists about 4 or 5 different times with further drill down questions, almost identical to what's the right rate. So in fact, that process is going to continue once that you all select your operator. Technically, at that point, my current contract ends, but I'm certainly doing everything I can to set the table and then assist further in the future. And I am also engaged to help with the ordinance review as well. So the goal is to have a rate that accomplishes a couple of things. Number one, we were so pleased with the huge output of information and the input that we received. We held about 5 or 6 in-person meetings and had anywhere from 8 to 10 people at each of those meetings. Everyone from folks that just happened to hear about that it was parking and they didn't have anything better to do that day. Others that came with a list of ideas and suggestions and very specific things, and what are you going to do about this and what are you going to do about that? And having rolled out paid parking now to about 55 cities of various sizes, we feel very confident that we could answer a lot of those questions. So what came into being, it seems, is that we want to honor the 2-hour enforcement, even though there hasn't been a lot of enforcement. But more important, we really want to look at providing a compliance program rather than enforcement, right? Enforcement seems to, and not that we're going to change the name of the department and things like that. I certainly don't have that authority, but compliance is really our goal. We absolutely want every single person that came down to downtown yesterday to come tomorrow, even if there is a charge for some point. But what we heard from everybody that we talked to, developers, the county, we had several meetings with the county, the bank here, Citibank?
City.
Lake City Bank, of course, because that's what Warsaw is known as, City of Lakes, since 1854. So what we found was that that folks that had maybe the first, here's how it usually happens. Most people are honest and sincere, and they want to follow the rules. That's been my experience. I believe that to be the case. So when you see a sign that says 2-hour parking and you go in and something else happens, or you get called away, or your boss, right, because we all live in a 24-hour day, and you leave your car, you come back and you're like, oh, I'm going to get a ticket because I was there for 3 or 4 hours. I don't have a ticket. Interesting. So, and then you may give it another thought, you may not. But then if you come back a week later, right, you're coming back to your same event or whatever, you're not quite too concerned. And about the 2nd or 3rd time that you park for days in some instances, because the enforcement team, 2 great people, Dallas and Dana, I don't think they're necessarily both writing tickets at the same time. We're trying to cover the entire downtown area without any technology to assist them, chalking tires and things like that. So when we talked to all of the different people that we had conversations with and all the businesses, as well as residents, as well as employees for the city and for the county, we got great responses from the police department, KEDCO. I mentioned the city and the county. Main Street Warsaw was very instrumental as well. And what we found was that the city's not really going to make any money. That's one of the things that always seems to come out. Oh, they're charging for parking. That's because they're going to, whoever's fault it is and whatever boondoggle, right? That's unfortunately the environment that often is out there. Because I can tell you that I have yet to meet people who like to pay for parking, and I've been doing this a long time. Now, I'm actually one of those people, and let me tell you why. Exactly the challenge that we came here. Our goal is to have it so that the people who want to come in and want to eat at the downtown eatery, for example, are able to park a reasonable distance, particularly if it's a little cool or a little windy. I live in Oklahoma, where we got our share of wind for sure, but we don't want people to be discouraged. And one of the things that we were fascinated by is one of our surveys that was answered by several hundred people in Warsaw. And you didn't have to live here, you didn't have to live downtown. It was just anybody in the city. KEDCO again, Terry did a phenomenal job helping to get the surveys out. We were blown away by the number of people, businesses large and small, that said, yes, parking is a problem. I've had customers call me and say, is there anywhere to park? And people that are not in the parking business, right, which is good for me, right? It's been a good business for me. There aren't a lot of people that do this. We hear this all the time from businesses. And so and there's different things that you can do, and we've considered all of those. Put up additional signs, start enforcing the signs that are here. And again, the team that you have here does a phenomenal job being very careful in following the rules. But our goal was to hit that sweet spot so that people who want to come down for 2 hours or less are able to do that. And in these meetings we had, people came with lists of names, which I did not bring with me. This is so-and-so, and that son of a gun parks here every day. He's here when I get here, and I come to work at 8 o'clock. That same car is still here, when I leave at so-and-so, and then I've got these people calling me. Then we talked about some, because all of us are involved in technology, right? And we're in different places on our technology journey. So we wanted to talk about that and what that would look like. And what if I don't have an app or a phone that allows to take for apps, or maybe I don't want to have an app on my phone, or maybe I don't necessarily want to give my credit card information, no matter how this is going to work. So we started looking at all of those different things. And so our recommendation is to roll out parking initially with 2 hours free. Now, in order to do that, knowing that we have limited, wonderful but limited enforcement personnel, we're kind of on the honor system a little bit. Well, as we know, that doesn't always work after a while, particularly when it comes to things like having to pay for parking. So what we have got instead is the ability where people will come in, and we're proposing a great validation system where every business, large or small, would have the ability to provide parking for their customers, basically by the benefit and provided by the city of Warsaw, by starting a parking session so that we know when they got there. So if Dallas and Dana, who are covering the entire 12, 14, 16 block area, they may not get there until you've already been there for 20 or 30 minutes, but you've already let everybody know that you've started your parking session. So at the end of 2 hours, we certainly don't want to lose people that are, my mother going to the beauty parlor was a social event. It was 2.5, 3.5 hours, no doubt about that. So we want to have that ability. So one of the things that we're suggesting is that businesses would have the opportunity to pay, if they chose for some of their customers, for that third or that fourth hour, for example. Or the individual driver can pay for that time as well. And all sorts of different ways that can happen. And again, we can get into those specifics later. But what's the right number? What's the sweet spot? So we know in cities and towns and townships the size of Warsaw, that the best rate, not the highest, not the lowest, the best rate is around $1 to $1.50 an hour. That's large enough where it's a deterrent if you work downtown. I mean, we couldn't believe that the bank has an entire full block parking lot. The county has phenomenal assets that they've gone down and knocked down buildings and put in surface parking lots. And we have a plan for that to help with infill and to bring more individuals and residents and businesses downtown. So the $3 for the third hour basically honors what we have learned for the last 15 years, and that is $1 an hour, right? 1, 2, and then the third hour, that would be 3. Is that going to be too high? Don't know. Is that going to be too low? I don't know. Are there people that are going to be unhappy about it? Yes, I can tell you that. There are going to be a couple of those. So with the ability to validate their parking, with the ability to pay or not pay, or again, if you don't want to pay, then you simply can go and move your car somewhere else. But with the new ordinances, you've got to move them far enough away that you're not preventing Ms. Dobbins or Mrs. Dobbins, whichever is appropriate, if she wants to come down and she wants to go have a nice dinner or meet some friends or whatever it is that she may want to do. So we believe that the rate structure that we've proposed, and which actually came from the company that we're recommending to be hired, because we asked all 4 of these companies, and we asked them all, and you would not believe, and Justin mentioned that, and I'm not an Excel guy, I've got somebody that does this for me, and it's the biggest spreadsheet I've ever been involved with. But we talked to everybody that we could and found out and came up with the blend of what we thought made the most sense. So the rates that we've recommended to you are with the expectation that we believe that that is a great place to start. So with the validation ability, the customer can call out. You don't have to download an app. We can do this on any phone. If you have a Motorola flip phone, you still have the ability to pay for parking right here. And we know that almost 99% of every vehicle has at least a driver with at least one cell phone. So we're confident of that. On the off-street locations that the city has, we are recommending 1 or 2 pay stations. Looks like an ATM, right? They're solar powered, so it's good for the environment. Just because that's just easier for some folks, and they have that ability. And again, I don't want to go too much into that detail unless you'd like to do that. So our goal is again, is to provide an area of compliance. I know that, the reason that's important is we want to make it as easy as possible then for people to come downtown. There also certainly may be areas a couple of blocks out that is less expensive, or maybe you can park there for longer than 2 hours. But we recommend that we roll out the program, whenever that is, initially with the entire core CBD be the same parking rate and to be the same amount of time. And here's why. Because, believe it or not, most people don't wake up in the morning and say, let's talk about parking today. They're going to hear something. They're going to see a snippet on a news story, or they're going to read something in the paper or something in social media about the city's doing that or it's doing this. And we don't want somebody pulling in thinking, well, this is a 3-hour zone, or no, this is a 2-hour, because we are not advocating 500 signs be installed downtown. We are advocating working with the existing wayfinding signs that you all have, that apparently has been done once or twice before because they're a little bit different, and add the little universal P for parking, kind of get started. But then downtown, we're also recommending informational signs as well. Perhaps one of the coolest features is if you do use the app, and in this environment, about 70 to 75% of the people get to where they like the app, we have the ability for those same businesses to advertise. So imagine if you pull in, and you go in and you go to start your parking session, and something pops up that says, hey, pizza is, get a free slice of pizza, just show this ad, just come on in. It doesn't cost the customer anything. They're going to go in and they're going to get a free slice of pizza. There's a clothier here who I actually bought a nice winter coat from one of the times I was here, who was also one of those gentlemen that came in and had a lot of good examples and talked about it. He's got a lot of customers that are going to stay longer than 2 hours. And he's one of those people that has gotten that phone call that you just hate, saying, I came down, but there was just nowhere to park, so I had to leave, and I just didn't come back. And of course, at some point, those folks may not keep trying if there's not availability. So, and you can probably tell my degree's in broadcasting, and so I could talk for the entire evening, and you don't want that. So I hope somehow I stumbled around there and gave you the answer you were looking for.
Yeah, I realize it's a slippery slope because you don't want to penalize that person that might be having a 3.5-hour hair appointment,
Absolutely.
but you want to maybe penalize those folks that are taking advantage and parking all day. But I'm assuming in this situation, if they are parking 5 days a week all day, they're going to pay a pretty hefty rate for the whole week.
Yes, ma'am. Some of the preliminary ordinance recommendations that we've made, as Justin mentioned, is a lot of the fines are going to double, which plays horribly in the media. Nobody wants to hear that, especially right now, because just about everything seems to cost a little bit more. But the opportunities that there are going to be there for that very example. And it's one of the things that the clothier gentleman probably, I can't put words in his mouth, might agree with, is if he's got a customer and they get that friendly reminder on their phone that says, hey, by the way, the system says you've got 15 minutes left to either complete your business, return to your car, or pay for that third hour or the fourth hour, et cetera. So that's the way it's designed to do that. So that clothier who is attempting to make a sale that's worth a lot more than $1 or $2 says, you know, Bob or Henry or Frank, let me take care of that for you here. And he'll have the ability, without ever taking the customer's phone, he can actually provide a validation, which either he or she, the business, has paid for. Maybe it's full rate, so the city, because the city is not going to make money on parking. Let me just be real clear on that. You're adding an amenity to the city, the way that we're rolling this program out, for sure. So other businesses, so that they can do it themselves, they can be paid later, and the actual, even if you start a parking session, you don't have to pay anything if you leave within 2 hours. Secondly, if you're there a third hour, fourth hour, again, you're going to get these reminders. You have the opportunity to do whatever it is that you want to do with it. When you're done, if you've gotten the validation and you get ready to close out your tab, it might say, you know, to your example, $11. Oh, but wait, where I got the slice of pizza, they gave me 1 free hour, so here's $3 credit, for example. And the clothier who was very happy to see me, he just comped all the rest of it. So these are all things that can be put into play that we think is going to be very, very helpful, and is going to be very, very well received.
Well, I know I have a retail store just down the street, and, you know, I'll have people that say, well, I rode by 2 or 3 different days this week, but there wasn't a place to park, so.
Absolutely. Well, and we also want to help with loading zones. You've got some loading zones, for example, that can be, a couple of them probably shouldn't still be loading zones. Others, maybe you need some more over here. Also, we also need to add some additional accessible parking, right, or back in the day, disabled parking, because it's easy to understand why that's they've kind of fallen by the wayside, and we don't want that. So we've got some recommendations as far as how many of those should be, where they can be best located. But to your point, you're absolutely right, is by pushing at 2 hours, say, hey, let's move somewhere else that's at least a block away. Or, hey, if you're having a great time, keep having a great time. And this just makes it easier for you to be able to come back and have that great time again.
Thank you.
Any other questions? For me, sitting through all the meetings, it just seemed like the company that we're considering, the ability that Dallas and Dana will have, instead of chalk, pencil, and paper, they will be far more efficient. They're out there, but the efficiency problem, it's a huge problem. And so why should I comply? Because I may or may not get caught. This, I believe, and these gentlemen can talk about it, will encourage compliance because our guys will be more efficient.
Yes, sir.
And it's not out to get you, whether it's 2 hours free, $3, $1, $11 for the day. But if you don't comply, we're going to be more efficient, and then the fines will start to ramp up. So it's better to be a good neighbor and start your parking and finish your parking appropriately. Is that okay for me to say? And I see these gentlemen nodding their heads that
Absolutely.
That's what's going to help us.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yeah, and they and I'm sure they'll have an opportunity to speak. They came up from Indianapolis, the company that maybe now's a good time, because I can certainly hop back up here if need be. So we went through literally an exhaustive process, I can tell you that. And you guys cost me a lot of money because I bid a flat bid contract, so that's my fault. But I'm happy to do it and happy to be here. So the company that we selected, there were 2 finalists going down, as I mentioned, that we went back to. Their CEO is here and can tell you, I think we went back 4 or 5 different times where we asked the exact same questions of each of the 2 groups, and we asked them. And then we would hear from the parking committee, or we would hear from Terry, or we would hear from other folks, things that, and Justin would call me up and he would say, John, I'm so sorry, but we got a couple more questions. Can you help me with these? I'm like, Justin, that's why I'm here. We're happy to do it. So each time we got either a concern or a question, we addressed it. So there are all sorts of technologies out there, but the most important thing, in my opinion, and then I'm going to introduce our friends here, is that we're all at different places in our technology journey. That's the way that I like to promote it. Again, I was on kind of the cutting edge of starting to pay for parking on your cell phone, and that works great, but it doesn't work great for everybody. And again, the last thing we want to do, we want to remove any barriers, remove any hurdles that there might be to come down to this magnificent downtown that you all have. You know, and I've noticed a couple of new shops that are here since last time that I was here a few months ago. That's very exciting. So we want to make it as easy as we can for them to be able to do that. So they've looked at their technology. We've put together an entire plan, and my last comment before I introduce on my promise is, what we are proposing is a management agreement contract. And what that means in the parking industry is that you all are still the boss. You all, or your designated representative, makes every decision. I just want to be clear about that. They will come to you and with ideas and suggestions and wear you out a little bit for the first year or two, I'm sure, but it's all going to be entirely in the city's hands at all times. We are an extension and have the honor of doing that. And so they're going to talk about the technology that they propose just a little bit and go wherever else you want. So with us today is a company called Dennison Parking. And if you've ever been to Indianapolis, you may know the Dennison name. I've had the honor of actually having met Perry Griffith III's father, or PT2 as we call him. And it's a great company right here in Indianapolis. They've done phenomenal, right here in Indiana. And in Indianapolis, they've done amazing things with Super Bowls and some other events. But their bread and butter are communities just like Warsaw. And they're going to talk a little bit about that. But again, I've known Perry Griffith III here for, met him about 10 years ago, known him off and on for about 3 or 4 years. And then I'll let him introduce his companion that's here as well. One of the reasons that we like Dennison, of the 4 companies, and we had 4 strong companies that bid, Dennison was the only one whose CEO personally came and gave the presentation and led the presentation. He was the one that stood and made assurances and provided his word of what they would or would not be willing to do as the operator. They did a great job answering those questions, and I can't endorse them more strongly for this particular operation here. So I'm going to step down, and Perry, if you want to take over.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. Great to have another opportunity to be up here today. As John said, we're thrilled with the opportunity to be here and to be able to present both not only the company, but sort of our view of parking in Indiana. As John had mentioned, we are in Indianapolis, but we've called Indiana home for over 90 years. We are a family-owned business, and I would say that that's a big part of what it means to do parking in a community like this, is to treat everyone, your customer, your client, your employees, like a part of the family. And that's something that's very near and dear to us. And so we take that responsibility very seriously, that we are an extension, as John mentioned, of you, of your policies, your views, and to make sure that we honor those and that we take those into consideration, not only in the recommendations that we make, but in how we approach the business of parking in a community like Warsaw. Because Warsaw is different than Fort Wayne. It is different than Noblesville. It is different than Evansville. And so we want to make sure that parking in Warsaw feels like parking in Warsaw, and that it honors the approach, the theories, the objectives that this council and the community find most important. And so that's the approach that we're going to be taking on your behalf. So happy to answer any other questions. John did a great job walking through many different aspects of the program. Justin did some other aspects to it, but I did want to certainly emphasize our sincere appreciation for the opportunity, and also to just say that as the hometown kids, if you will, managing the parking here, we certainly appreciate what it means to be a Hoosier, and the desire is to have free parking in front of the door you want to walk into. And so how do we manage through that and go through the process of a change? And the good news is we've had some experience, as John alluded to, here in Indiana with communities very similar to Warsaw to make that a reality.
John alluded to the fact that the merchants can actually, we would have the opportunity to actually pay a part of the fee or the fee if we will be able to do that.
Yes, I think the penultimate goal will be to set up an operating strategy.
Okay.
that you all will have a strong degree of influence in. Once we have that, it is then to go to the businesses around and say, here's the philosophy or how we're going to operate. How can we best work with you as a stakeholder to facilitate that in the most easy way for your business? Because your business may be very different than someone else's. And so what's important to you, what are the things that are critical? And then we find ways to make sure that the technology that's already been alluded to facilitate that within the guardrails. And frankly, there may be things that we cannot do that are technologically infeasible or practically for a consumer's use difficult. And so we'll advise you to that end and say, here's the options that we can go through. And there's a series of trade-offs, and we'll make the best decision we can given those trade-offs or constraints.
Okay, thank you.
And the good news is, we've been doing this for a little while, so there's a few things that we've seen. And while I may not have the 40 years of experience in the world of parking, our experience certainly with the employee base that we have and our presence here, also working within communities. And we do operate across 12 states, so it's not just Indiana. We're from Florida to New York, from Seattle to Vegas, from Minneapolis to Houston, and a lot of places in between. And so as a result, we not only have a local perspective, but a national one as well in terms of where the trends are and how our communities like this are evolving.
I come downtown. I won't use chalk to start my parking session. Enforcement will not use chalk. Tell me when I park my car, what's my experience going to be? Can you take me through that? And then also related to my experience, maybe I want to come down for 3 hours. What would code enforcement be doing as my car is parked here? Can you briefly highlight that experience for me and for Dallas?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to walk through that. And then Bill, my colleague here also, who's one of our operations manager, who oversees a lot of our municipal, can jump in and certainly add any additional color along the way here to the extent that I missed something in that process. I think the goal that I would say, the experience, is going to be one that is for those that are technology enabled, who are very savvy and capable. They will have a QR code that you could scan with your phone. So how many of you thought pre-COVID that we'd still be using QR codes, right? They were kind of moving by way of other technologies and moving beyond, and all of a sudden COVID changed that drastically, and everybody's menu all of a sudden was a QR code, and so it became pretty much the de facto way of engaging. So that same process would be the case. You'll be able to scan a QR code that would be posted on a sign. You would, in the event that you are just a guest visiting, you're here for some county business, you could enter and transact your information, register. I'm going to be here 2 hours. Enter the 2-hour time limit, your name, information, license plate, a potential payment if at that time, if you're going to be overstaying as an example. And then your session would begin. As Dallas is going around, they're going to be able to scan the license plates in the downtown area. And with that scan, they will see 123 XYZ plate has a valid session. They are within their bounds. And as a result, they'll just move on their very merry way. But it is a very quick scan of that plate. No longer having to determine, did the wheel move? Did the chalk adjust, right? And so very efficient from that perspective. As John had mentioned at the 1 hour and 45-minute mark, you might have a reminder that says, your time is up. Would you like to extend? At that time, they could open up that same app. It will usually give you a prompting, and you could have the ability to extend that time with a payment. If you know you're going to be here for 4 hours, you go ahead and just make that payment up front. And if you stay less, then you're compliant. Dallas will have no reason to issue a citation. In the event that you decide to roll the dice, and I'm just going to park and just run in, and then you meet a friend and 1 hour turns into 3, Dallas would be going through and see that plate, scan it, and it would show invalid session. It would understand, okay, no session here. And if they had already been through previously, it would actually note how long that car has been there. And as a result, would be able to issue a citation for that occurrence. And then the goal is, again, compliance, right? We want to educate. We want to make it easy. If you are not that tech-enabled person, you could text for that capability. If you're parking on a lot, there is the capability as well to have a meter or a kiosk that you would pay to enter your information. So our goal is to meet the customer where they are, to use technology to improve convenience for the user, and then to use technology to improve convenience and efficacy for the enforcement officer. So we want to meet them where they are, whether it is downloading an app, so if you're a regular visiting here all the time, You can just download that. It has your information pre-programmed. Bloop, you're good to go. So it really depends on the user, but ultimately it will start with the communication of these are the rules of the road for this area. Download if you would like. If you're a repeat visitor, great. If not, you can do the guest checkout experience.
So if you, okay, you start your session, you're only going to be here an hour or so, you don't necessarily put your credit card information then? Do you only put it in at the point in time when you want to extend?
Yeah, so Bill, correct me on how, from your perspective, this works most effectively. So Bill oversees a number of our municipal markets. We do have it different ways in different markets, depending on that local jurisdiction's preference. So Bill, in your approach here, what would you recommend?
The method of payment is required once the session starts,
Okay.
regardless if it's free or not.
Okay, so then if you, you only intended to be 2 hours, but you say 3, then it would automatically,
Yeah,
you wouldn't necessarily have to go back and, okay.
I'll speak about a recent experience I had. I got a parking ticket, actually, so took a business trip over to, no, it wasn't here. It wasn't here. It was in Fort Wayne. So, very similar process. I parked, instead of using a meter in the traditional sense, there was a QR code. Gave me a zone number and some other stuff I had to fill out. So, got 2 hours free. It did require payment, so I put my credit card number in. Was in for 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I walked out to a ticket. So I was confused. Invalid session, said I put the wrong license plate number in. I double checked, I did not. So I appealed it, just got notice back today that I still owe the money for the ticket. So that kind of raised a lot of questions in my mind. I don't really, I'm stubborn enough, I would go to court and actually appeal it in person, but it's not worth my gas money to get over there, and don't have a lot of time. But anyway, so I'll just pay my $10 and move on with life, no big deal. But that got me thinking about here. So what specific process would happen if instead of me being in Fort Wayne and I happen to be at a business meeting here and I got a ticket that I don't think I actually deserved, but that parking enforcement, obviously gave me a ticket for.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different approaches that can be taken. So one, our hope would be that in that case, you weren't actually issued a citation. So accuracy matters, right? So let's use that. But in the event that that was the case, where you were issued a citation you felt wrongfully, it is really a city decision on how lenient would the city like to be. So we have in many of our cases in municipalities very similar to this, where if we issue a citation, somebody comes in and says, hey, I meant to do this the right way. I was trying to be compliant, and I got a citation anyway, or I instead of a 1, I put an I misread my plate when I put it in. We'll waive it and say, hey, you know what? You tried, great. Now that second time they come back in with the same story, you go, okay, here, let me show you one more time how to do it. And maybe by that third time, and again, this is up to you on how you'd like to approach it, you go, there seems to be a theme here. Either there's willful intent to skirt the system, or we really have a gap, and let's try to figure out what that looks like. But ultimately, it really is a city decision. And that's part of our goal, is to say, again, compliance is the objective. We much rather have people follow the rules than to penalize them for not. And so our team in multiple different municipalities goes through that process, handles the calls, reaches out, and the databases that we're using have visibility into that. So we can have all sorts of information at our disposal to understand, I know you said you thought you were here an hour and 50 minutes, but our car, in one case of a municipality, actually drove through this area, and we clocked you within this window for about 3.5 hours. So you might have just lost track of time. Is that possible? Well, gosh, I did go meet with the person, and so on and so forth. And so we'll still waive it this time. But next time, let's be a little more timely, or here's how you use the app again. So again, back to the education piece versus the punitive component.
So I guess There was a phone number I called, and then the lady directed me to a website. Would it be similar, would all of the appeals be done through the app, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so Bill, do you want to speak specifically
Yes.
to how you think?
So on the violation, once it's received here, there's a link or a QR code on the violation to direct you to the payment site. In there, on that website, will be the option to appeal.
Yeah.
And then that is put into the database, and then whoever has access to that has the rights to look. And then they can either deny or accept the appeal, waive the fine, adjust it down to a more reasonable rate.
Yeah.
What we can do, whatever. So-
Sure. So in your experience, Fort Wayne, and I'm making an assumption, I have no idea, quite a bit larger city than us, they've probably got dedicated people, they're getting dozens of appeals a day or a week, I'm assuming. So, from your experiences, I'm assuming it's gonna be Dallas and Dana that would handle the appeals process. Is that gonna be too cumbersome for them to keep up with? I mean, from your perspective and data,
No, in similar operations, they would expect maybe to see the classic or 5 a day on a high end.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect it to be a large amount. And there's technological advances. There are like things that we can do, like we can run the LPR at like an N-1, which means we can allow up to 1 error on the plate read. So if you do enter a incorrect character, it'll still show that it's valid. We can do things like that at launch, and then we can tighten it down, or we can be really tight at the beginning, and then loosen it over time. So we have
okay,
options.
okay.
And if I understand correctly, then if you're someone that maybe comes downtown 2, 3, 4 times a week, you can work through an app and have your information all set up, so you're not having to do that each time you come.
Yeah, so in the city of Indianapolis, for instance, which we do the enforcement for, I use, in that case, for that municipality, the Park Mobile app. And in that case, I have my car and my wife's car, because often I might be with the kids or, and moving between, and mine's just pre-registered. This is the car I'm driving. It has my plate, it has my payment. I click it, here's my time, and I'm done. I mean, it is extremely efficient from that perspective. Other municipalities, we use multiple different platforms. That's one of the things that I think, from Denison's perspective, we've always valued is we are tech agnostic, right? So we try to find the right solution for the right approach and the right platform for that community versus saying that this is the way that it has to be for this market. And so in the case of Indianapolis, Park Mobile was that choice. We're the enforcement arm for them. But there are other platforms that we're considering where very similar capabilities exist and would be the case here. But since Indianapolis, for many people in the state, is familiar from that process, it's the one that I cite, but yes.
Josh has a complaint here. He goes through your website and still doesn't feel good about it, so he calls my office. What's my experience as mayor going to be when I get the call? He's upset. Tell me what's going to happen if I want to check in and see and maybe say, I'm going to fix the ticket, or I, based on what he said, I don't want him paying. What will my experience be? Or maybe somebody who's designated to do that. How would that work?
Yeah, so I think there is some work to be done to identify that process candidly. I don't think that has all been shaped, largely because I think it needs to be a conversation of what do you want that process to be. I will offer that, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like, you can call me, and I will help facilitate that through our process. But I think, to your point, the details of how we want that to be run through, what is the escalation path, and how do we want that to be managed, is something that we're going to look forward to working with you on.
So one thing about that, the platform that we've chosen provides its own communication process. We could set it up to where, like, we could have hearings and mailings would be sent, and they could come in and protest and do all the, like, from the very beginning, the online appeal, they disagree with that, they file another appeal, and then it falls into the process where it's automatically scheduled for hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's infinitely flexible in that respect.
The one concern I have, and I'm impressed with all the technology and all the upgrades, it's going to be very efficient, but for someone that doesn't work with computers or someone that doesn't have a credit card, I could see where they just say, it's just too difficult and they won't come downtown. And our goal is to get people to come downtown. So I guess if they're less than 2 hours, they're okay. But if they go over the 2 hours, that's where it gets complicated. And I'm not sure there is an answer for that. But I can see many people, maybe you're one of them, Jerry, that just doesn't want to use their cell phone to go to an app or, so I guess signage would be the only solution. I mean, if you run into that, I guess that's my question.
So the answer is yes. And again, our objective is to meet the stakeholders where they are. And so in many of our markets, we have not only the digital payment capability, but also the ability to pay a kiosk where you could, if in some cases, we have coin capability, right? If you want to use coins or cash, we could accept that as well. Now, Justin, I think, has consideration to go through with some of that. That's still, I think, being worked on to finalize how that's going to take shape here, is my understanding. And we would certainly do that in concert with you. But yes, to the extent that that was a concern, there are ways to facilitate that for those that are maybe don't have a credit card. You know, how do we manage that?
And I'll just add that one of the other options that we have used in other markets is that you can have designated businesses that are there, maybe one per block fence. And there's signage and they know that those folks that are sometimes referred to as the underbanked or simply choose not to have a credit card can go in and they can pay cash and either be given a debit card or they can then use it for their park concession or actually pay it to this business and the business can pay it using their credit card. That way the city isn't out any revenue, the folks get to be able to do what they want to do. So that's just one other option there.
Just to clarify too, kind of piggybacking off of Jurgen, well, technically, they're not home free for 2 hours if they haven't registered. They have to register.
That is correct, yes.
And that's my concern. I can see a lot of people just say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I just won't come downtown.
I mean, that is a possibility. I mean, I will say that I think that is there is a percentage of the population that no matter the circumstance will feel that their Hoosier right to have free parking in front of the door they want to walk in is being violated. And no matter how easy we try to make it, trust me, I mean, I do this every day, right? And there are people that will be difficult when it comes to
So I guess that's my question. If I come downtown, I'm going to just stop and run in to get something at a store, and I don't register, will I get a ticket possibly?
Well, then the loading zones are a great example for that. And so to the extent that you find yourself, you know, one of the things that we are planning to work very closely with is the identification in the right spots for loading zones. So there's a community that we're going through this with right now that is also a county seat, and they have a number of spaces around the county courthouse area that they use not only for people that are going in to get coffee for the quick, hey, run in and run out, no registration required, they're there 15 minutes or less, they just run in, run out, works fine. Or for court business, right? They just need to go drop something off and run back out, and that facilitates it. And so both the city and the county benefit because there is movement there. Now, the key piece to this is the enforcement is consistent, that somebody is not sitting in that 15-minute loading zone for 30, 40, 50 minutes without having penalties. So the good news is that space is often available for that quick use case. Whereas today, in an environment where that weren't being enforced, it likely would not be available because somebody would be bending the rules, shall we say politely.
So, well, most of our merchants are pretty service-oriented. So if we have somebody that is challenged by technology, we could help them set up the app and everything so that it would be then relatively easy for them after
Yeah.
that.
And we have done this as well. When we're onboarding, we have spent time and had our folks out to help teach. You know, we have gone so far as when you are going around and launching this, you have a campaign that has flyers. Here's how you do these approach. So the communication plan is critically important, both on the front end and the consistency and the reinforcement. And that's why when the question was asked earlier around, I got a citation that I didn't feel was right, our approach is to say, well, you were trying to do the right thing. Let us help you do that better next time to maintain compliance. So yes, I agree. I think that's part of the beauty of the way that we like to approach it, is that it is meant to be helpful, to facilitate compliance, as opposed to, gotcha, we got you a
Yeah.
ticket. That's never the objective.
That would be the hope, just like if somebody walked into Cindy's store and had trouble with a credit card or whatever, I'm sure Cindy would do everything she can.
Yeah.
Let me help you through so you can purchase or get what you want. That's what I would like to see from you guys as well.
Yeah.
We will help you be successful.
Yeah, and that's our philosophy. I mean, that is very much true to how we like to operate, and our folks are aware of that.
Well, and Terry can validate, we had a program for the Christmas holidays, and a lot of us merchants, you know, some of the people that were a little challenged by the technology, you know, we were able to walk them through it, and then once they got an understanding, they were okay.
Any other questions? Terry, you've been sitting back there real quick. Come up and tell us, you've been in these meetings? Are you liking the direction we're heading or not? Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, I think this is moving in the right direction. The recommendations are good. John has done a great job working with Justin. And then Dennison Parking is just an excellent firm to use. And again, what we're trying to achieve is how do we get consistent enforcement in an efficient way, but I call it curb management, right? So this is the most valuable real estate we have downtown, is that right-of-way right in front of stores. And it's not like everyone's going to be able to park in front, we've talked about, but there should be at least an expectation that I might be able to park close. And the way you do that, achieve that, is through creating turnovers. And so having a consistent program like what they're doing and doing the efficient enforcement is really important. The other thing I think is really can't be understated is the convenience. Right now, if you are wanting to park longer than 2 hours, you have to move because you'll be in violation. There's no way to extend your stay. You have to at least come out of your meeting or come out of whatever you were doing and move your car physically. And so this gives you the opportunity with getting a text to say, hey, if you want to stay longer, you can pay now. You don't have to leave your meeting or what you're doing, shopping or a dinner. So that convenience is really important. And then I think also it just lays the expectations, right? You know the rules and they're going to be enforced. And then people can just act accordingly. And like they said, we want compliance. So I think it'll actually be better. And I think you'll see that people's perception might be that there's actually more parking downtown because there'll be more spaces available at times when they might need them. Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Terry mentioned enforcement. Dallas, come on up. How do you feel about this? You've been heavily involved. You're out there day to day with the chalk, the pencil, and the pad. What are your feelings with the progress that we've made and maybe next steps? Any comments? And thanks for coming tonight. Sure.
It would definitely be more efficient as it is right now, as we've discussed, that if the weather's bad, we can't get out there because it washes the chalk off. That won't be a factor during those times. Winter always slows down because you can't mark on snow, so that would definitely be a benefit. But they've also added a couple more jobs to our plate, which is great because it's more efficient. That's what we're trying to get to is the efficiency here. And I believe that will help as well because as it is now, I spend 2 hours, it's about 45 minutes to make a route. Then I wait 2 hours and I come back and I do that route again. We can drive through it at any period, and if they're not in violation, it's not going to mark a citation. So not necessarily do away with that 2 hour walk, but definitely we can, if Dana marks at a certain time, then I come through right behind him, not knowing that, it's not going to be a violation because I'm assuming that the devices talk to each other. So I think it's definitely going to be a huge benefit, not just for me, but absolutely for the downtown area.
So will it then automatically generate a ticket? You don't have to deal with any paper tickets or anything? You can,
Yeah, it's on thermal paper, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, once the plate is, like stated that it's invalid, the ticket is then, the fields are populated and the ticket is generated in about 30 seconds.
Dallas, thanks for all you do.
Yes, sir, thank you.
You're out there. I feel like at times you're the baseball player. I give you a pencil to go hit the ball. The equipment you're going to have truly is going to be a bat to encourage
Yes.
positive play on the
Yes.
field.
Yeah.
Good.
and
Absolutely.
I'm assuming you can get some pretty good statistics then off of that, so.
Yeah, right now, everything is very old school. Even doing our statistics is very old school, so. And also, I hope that people see me as approachable. If they do have a problem with the system, I do have people right now that will flag me down and say, hey, how do I pay this? I want to be approachable, but I know that everybody sees me as the parking guy and you're going to get a ticket. But if they have an issue with that, I definitely want them to approach me and I can walk them through it. I can, download the app for them, whatever they might need. So.
Well, I, again, appreciate your efforts. I know you and I have talked quite a bit about your role out there. And just for the record, publicly, my office, I have never received, right here, a complaint about Dallas and his efforts, good, bad, or ugly situations on the street. And that says a lot about you and your approach.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Justin, you've been at it for months. You've had these gentlemen helping you. I know you didn't want you wanted the information. It's been about 45 minutes and we appreciate it. We wanted the public to hear what we've been considering and everybody here has been great. What are the next steps or what are you thinking? No action tonight.
Yeah, no action tonight. I do appreciate everybody's time. I know this is a lot to just download to you guys, but we want to give you some time to process the information that we've gone over tonight, hear from your constituents, and see if there's any information that you, follow-up questions that you want to get addressed before we move forward. The next step would be to get our contract in front of the Board of Works for approval. That would be the contract with Denison. So getting them on board is an important step in the process to start setting everything up. So we have that important step. That would be the next step we would want to take is get that contract with our operator approved by the Board of Works. Following that, we would get those recommendations and work with them closely on setting up our system, getting ready, things geared up, the signage we would need. We would also follow that up with coming back to City Council for 2 meetings, and that would be the ordinance portion. That's when we would implement the fines that you guys would want to see us address, and how we would do, basically all the fees and fines that would go with the package for us to roll this out. They didn't go over it in a lot of detail today, but they do have a way to roll this out in a smoother way where a lot of warnings are issued for the first month or two. I don't know the duration of that time, but instead of somebody getting it going and just hammering people right out of the gate, we would want to slowly roll this out and give people a chance to learn the new process, learn the new system, so that we're not just going in and being punitive. We're actually giving people a chance to understand the system, work out all the kinks, and go in and understand how to pay for parking as they move forward. So that's at least the plan right now would be first get that parking management contract approved by the Board of Works, and then work on the ordinance portion and get that back in front of you for approval.
And the timeline, yeah, I know it's tentative, but this isn't going to be something that will just happen overnight. It's going to take several months. Here we are in the spring. It could be most of the summer, and we might be fortunate near the end of the summer to have everything put together. It's still a lot of work yet, but just appreciate your efforts, these gentlemen, to get us to this point to where we can have a better system for starting the people that wanting to come downtown, and then secondly, the businesses that are encouraging people to come downtown. So a lot more work, but again, I just appreciate everybody sharing tonight. And are there any more questions for Justin or any of the gentlemen that are here? Appreciate you coming tonight and just making it official. We wanted the public to hear what we've done the past year, and there's some more work to do, but we're getting closer. Any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hopefully, local media outlets will be able to share, and then there'll be feedback. You'll be able to, like Justin said, listen to constituents and maybe come back in the coming weeks as we head into May, in June, and offer more suggestions and insight. And I just appreciate these gentlemen. They've been so open. What do you want and how can we help you? And so that needs to continue. There aren't any other matters. Are there any questions? Anybody from the public? You've been patient tonight too. Appreciate it. Any questions? All right. Not receiving any. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank you. Be safe going back.
I figure I'll be a busy little beaver tomorrow because